It's a project to shoot a rocket up in the upper atmosphere, to collect particles there, and also to measure them directly there with certain instruments.
-10, 9, 8, 7.
With the rocket, we are limited to about this size of the diameter of the rocket that is going up. It has a total of length of about 7 meters, and the payload part of it is about half of it. So payload means all the parts, including instruments, but also including the sensors that we need to make the rocket flight and also to make the recovery. So a very important part of the Maxi Dusty 2 is that in comparison to the previous Maxi Dusty 1 rocket flights, we will this time also recover the payload. In the previous flights, the payload just went into the sea and was lost. Now we are going to recover it because we have a collector on board where we collect particles that we find hopefully in the upper atmosphere. So that's also the new and exciting part about it.
Det hovedinstrumentet for dette prosjektet. Det skal samle inn partikler, veldig små, vi snakker om nanometer i størrelse. Instrumentet skal ha vakuum, så det skal ha det samme vakuumet som vi forventer å åpne opp i 80 kilometers høyde. Det er cirka en 100.000-del og en milliontedel av atmosfære på bakken. Man må være veldig nøye på når man både designer og produserer ting, at man velger riktige, alt fra komponenter og monteringsmetoder og alt, og passe på at det er sikret for vibrasjon og temperatur. Dette lander jo i havet også, så her skal det jo også være vanntett. På denne Maxi Dusty 2 så har vi 5 instrumenter har vi. Og alt er designet og produsert lokalt i Tromsø. Det er bare kun enkelte deler, motor og elektromotorer, sånn som vi nødvendigvis må kjøpe eksternt. Ja, det er mange utfordringer, både på elektronikk og mekanikk, at ting skal tåle. Da blir man jo litt sånn paranoid, alt skal dobbeltsjekkes og trippelsjekkes og sånt før oppskyting.
We hope that the instrument is going to find small particles in the upper atmosphere. We know that there are very small, tiny particles in the upper part of the atmosphere. We have seen them with other instruments before. We have seen some evidence with radar, and we also have model assumptions that support this hypothesis, but we do not know exactly what is their size. We do not exactly know what is their distribution, and we do not know what is their composition. So these particles come into the Earth's atmosphere from space. We all know shooting stars. Shooting stars, we observe when these particles enter the atmosphere, they are decelerated because they collide with the particles of the atmosphere. And in this process, they are heated and they disintegrate. And this is what we see as a meteor or as a shooting star. The material from the cosmic dust, it just remains in the atmosphere at about 80 to 120 kilometers altitude, where usually we don't have dust particles from Earth, and they form new particles. And this dust component we can see with observations. This dust we have measured with Maxi Dusty 1 already before. And we also assume that these particles help to form ice particles in this altitude. Many of us in the north know the Noctilucent clouds that we see in the summer months at a very high altitude after sunset. We only see them after sunset because they're not very bright, and usually the brightness, the daylight, prevents us from seeing them. So our hypothesis is that in these Noctilucent cloud particles, we have, in addition to the ice component, a component of the tiny dust particles. We call them meteoric smoke, and those particles are left over from the meteor process. So these particles are really coming from interplanetary space. We want to really find them in the laboratory with measurements that we do with the collected samples that we bring back. When we plan such a project, we always try to have a set of different questions, and we have also sort of a basic question. And the basic question here in this case is, what is the size and what is the size distribution of these particles? And in the best case, we can find that by doing optical analysis of the collected samples. In the next step, we would go for a more detailed analysis and look for the composition of the particles. Then there is a completely different aspect that came up basically over the last couple of years. And this is the question whether, aside from the dust that we have from the cosmic component, there could be also a component of particles that is a result of human activity already. In this case, I do not mean particles that are ejected from the surface of the Earth upward, but we talk about particles that could form as a result of space activity. So this is a secondary objective that we have. And we also hope that by finding composition information, we may be able to distinguish whether there is a component of these human-made particles. A first consequence of this is that the chemical reactions that we have at this layer of the atmosphere may change into a different balance. Another consequence is that it is beneficial, or it's easier to grow an ice particle if there are already small condensation nuclei present. And these tiny particles are such condensation nuclei that make it easier for ice particles to form. If we have more ice particles and if we have a larger coverage with ice clouds, this changes the optical properties of the atmosphere. An astronomer would say it changes the albedo of the Earth. So the presence of white clouds leads to a larger reflection of incoming sunlight. If there's more sunlight reflected out, there's less sunlight reaching the Earth, so the temperature would be lower. However, these processes are not so direct because there's a whole bunch of other effects that would also be related to this. So it would be up to an expert to estimate how much change of these clouds is needed in order to see a variation, for instance, on the ground.
6, 5, 4.
Are you excited?
Oh, I'm very excited about that. The rocket experiments are sort of exciting because they're on a short time scale. You see everything from building the instrument, flight preparation, launch, and then working on the data. So you see the whole chain of space research within one project, and that makes it special.
Er du spent?
Ja, veldig. Det er veldig spennende det her.
3, 2, 1, fire! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Det gikk veldig bra. Det ble vel egentlig det vi kan kalle for en stor suksess. Alt. Og den her var jo interessert i mess, og så se at den åpna og lukka som den skulle gjøre. Og mess closed. Den oppførte seg helt prikkfritt. Vi har veldig fine data her der lokket og låsen og alt det har gått helt nominelt. Så det kunne ikke ha gått bedre. Vi sto fremst på kaia når den kom tilbake igjen, for å si det sånn. Og skulle liksom få et litt sånn første glimt av mess og se at det så greit ut, at det så tett. Og det gjorde det. Og de har jo allerede hatt den til en sånn første analyse, og de ser ikke noe kontaminering, at det kommer inn hverken fukt eller andre ting. Så den har fungert, så jeg vil si perfekt.
We kept the samples in this collector. We didn't open it. We left it the way it is. Brought it back to Tromsø, opened it under controlled conditions, and took the samples out for further analysis. The next exciting step was to travel to Trondheim, where we used the electron microscope facility together with an expert and looked at first images of these collected samples. It's not like photographs, it's more complex. But aside from that, we have also a huge amount of other data. We got about almost 100 different data files from Andøya space. Yeah, there is a lot of work to be done, and we are quite excited about that.
Ja, det har vært fantastisk. Det har vært et utrolig artig og spennende prosjekt. Som en videreføring fra Maxi Dusty 1 og nå til Maxi Dusty 2, så får vi håpe det blir en Maxi Dusty 3 også, om ikke alt for lenge.
Det her, det er rakettforskning?
Ja, det her er rakettforskning, definitivt.